Mr. Robinson, I wonder if we could begin by talking about your early life here in Pasadena. You grew up here and became an athlete here. I wonder if you tell us about your school days and your family life.
Well, I came to Pasadena, California in 1920 with my mother and three other brothers and one sister, making a total family of five. And we grew up on Pepper Street. And it was, in those days, what you might say, it was a normal childhood. We were discriminated against at that time, but it was so prevalent until we had become accustomed to it, and it didn't really make that much difference within our life. You want me to look directly at you or between?
No, right at Clayton.
Okay, all right.
You really got it? Yeah, okay, we got it. Why don't we go back and do just
the very beginning?
Yeah, right.
All right, you asked the question then.
Okay. Would you tell us about your early life growing up here in Pasadena, where you grew up, and something about your family?
I came to Pasadena, California in 1920 with my mother and three brothers and one sister, which was a total of five in our family. My mother had left her husband and we came here. I grew up in the elementary school system of Pasadena, and I attended the junior high school system in Pasadena, John Muir High School, and I went to Pasadena City College. Later on, in my college days, I went to the University of Oregon.
You were telling me earlier that in those days, kids were not allowed to use, Negro youngsters were not allowed to use the swimming pool.
Oh yes, we were segregated in that regards. We weren't allowed to swim at Brookside Park only but once a year, and at that time, the churches of Southern California used to have what they called the Union Picnic, and the churches would gather at Brookside Park, and we would have the full use of the swimming pool that day, and that was the only time we were able to swim, and that was once a year. During the interim times and part of my life, I spent helping to bring about the swimming policies of Pasadena and other things that were happening to minorities.
When do you remember first being personally very interested in athletics? You would later go on to be a fine runner. When did that start?
Oh, that started in elementary school. We used to have little games on the playgrounds. The classes would have running games and tag, like a tag team or something of this nature. And the teachers most of the time would get me to start it off, and we'd play like chasing a fox, and I'd have to break out of the ring, and then the whole class would start running after me, and then I'd learn how to swivel hip and sidestep and dart in between, and the next person that caught me and tagged me, we went back and formed the ring all over again, and he or she would break out of the ring, and we start to chase all over again. And as time went on, I found out that I was fairly fast, and just developed from as a normal kid. There was nothing exceptional about it. It's just the way I grew up, and I think there were a lot of youngsters my age probably was faster than I was, but you know, when you find where your niche is, that's where you try to stay, and that's what I did.
Do you remember when you first ran competitively in track?
Sure. That was in the junior high school. I ran 120-yard low hurdles in a race, and that was my first competitive race, and I tied the city record. And by the time the junior high school season was over, I had broken that record, and that was in 1932, and that record stood until 1956.
Did you get, during this period, were you coached at all? Or, I mean, were you pretty much running on your own effort?
Well, in junior high school, you're not really coached. You're placed out there, and coach say you do this and you do the other, and you do this event and you do the other. Junior high school is kind of like a feeling out situation, and you kind of get involved that way, and you see where your strong points are, your weakness, and you go to your strong points, and you continue down that avenue.
Can you remember when you first received some formal coaching, when somebody really sort of took your side and said, Robinson, you can run, and we want to teach you how to do some things to help you run better?
Well, my high school coach was the one that did a lot of good and gave me a lot of help. But I think that in reality, I just developed. I think that my involvement was more of a natural standpoint rather than say like some people may see in the movies where you go through all these accolades of exercises and things of this nature, and so to speak, dad is on the side and he's going to do this, and he sees that you eat Wheaties or whatever, and all of those things. Well, I didn't have that part of the training. The coaching came from practice out on the field. The coaches naturally teach you how to start and all of those things and help you to improve, and you have to go with it. And the funniest thing about it was when I went to high school, I was ineligible, or the doctors declared me ineligible because I had a heart murmur, and they refused to let me run track in my first year in high school. And so rather than doing anything as far as the heart murmur is concerned, I felt as though they had actually broken my heart, and I quit school. I just totally walked out of school and refused to go. So I went to work on odd jobs in labor field, and work with my mother, washing windows, waxing floors, and things of that nature, in which that was the type of work she was doing. So I helped bring in money to the family. And 1934, I went back to school, and the doctors again declared me ineligible, saying that they would not be responsible for me to run track, and again I was ineligible. And I went around and round with them about whys and wherefores, and they saw that I was determined, I wanted to run. They said, well, if you can get your mother to release the school of any responsibility of anything ever happening to you on the track, he says, you can compete. So I told my mother that I wanted to run track, and if I died running track, that's the way I wanted to go. And I said, I want you to sign the papers. And she said, well, okay. If that's what you want, that's what you can have. So she signed them, and I started running track. And I won every 100-yard dash race that I was in 1934. And I became the state champion, undefeated state champion. That year I set a school and league record in the long jump, and that was in 1934. And that record wasn't broken until 1966. So I started out basically a dead man, and here individuals who were sound and never had a problem or an objective from a doctor's standpoint, most of them are gone. I'm the only living sprinter from the 1936 Olympic Games that participated in the games. All of them are gone. Ralph Metcalf, Jesse Owens, Foy Draper, and Frank Wyckoff.
When did you when did you begin pointing toward the Olympics in 1936? When did you have a sense that that would be a worthwhile and achievable goal?
Well, I don't think that I ever set my sight on any particular event or thing. I was a competitor, and when the game started to develop, I got involved, and it was a process of elimination. And I just continued to go on up the ladder. What most people don't know, and the sports writers of today don't know, is that I set the first Olympic record in the tryouts. I broke Eddie Toland's 1932 Olympic record in the 200 meters over in Los Angeles. And even Jesse Owens, as great as he was, to that date, he hadn't broken the Olympic record. I broke it, and then I met Jesse Owens for the first time in the finals in New York. And Jesse beat me 1 foot, and he broke the record that I established in Los Angeles. So therefore, it really never got a chance to get into the record book that I was.
We'll come back to that point. Very good. Marvelous.
Okay, we're rolling.
Mr. Robinson, I wonder if you tell us again the story about your breaking Ed Toland's 1932 record in the 200-meter dash.
Well, in the tryouts here, I was competing in the 200 meters, and at that time, I broke Eddie Toland's Olympic record there in the Coliseum. And this was the first time it had been broken. So I was the world record holder in the 200 meters for about 2 or 3 weeks, whenever it was, and up until I met Jesse Owens in the finals tryouts in Randall Island in New York. There he beat me by 1 foot, and he broke the record that Eddie Toland, that I had established in Los Angeles.
Was that the first time you'd run against Owens?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the kind of competitive atmosphere that existed among sprinters in the country. Who did you know among the sprinters, beside the sprinters here, perhaps in Southern California? Were there reputations? Were people pretty well established at that time? Did you have people you were pointing to run against?
I never pointed myself towards any sprinter that there was. All I was concerned about was being there, and they had to be ready for me because I was ready for them. And throughout my track career, I was never out of condition. I was never injured, and I felt as though that in my competitive year, that the only way to succeed is to be ready and to stay in shape, and I stayed in shape.
Now, when you broke Toland's record, that qualified you for was that the qualifying meet for you to go to the Olympics, or did you have to do
No, that qualified me to go to the finals. You had 3 regional events. One was in New York, one was in Chicago, and one was on the West Coast. And in those areas, the first 3 individuals was qualified to go to New York to compete in the finals there in New York. And in the finals in New York, that's where you qualified to become a member of the team.
How did you feel about going to the Olympics? Did it have any special meaning for you?
Well, yes and no. It was something that I really hadn't dreamed about or hadn't put too much emphasis or thought behind it. My involvement was trying to do the best that I possibly could through the process of elimination, and I figured that I could beat the next guy, and that's where it went. And when I made the team, I just knew that I was a winner, that I was going to do good in Berlin. I was never boastful about it. I never say became big-headed or anything of this nature, and I didn't change my attitude towards my friends or anyone else. I was still myself.
What can you tell us about your memories of that 1936 Olympics? Were there any special preparations? Of course, you had to go from here to New York, I guess, to leave. Were your friends or family, were they excited about it? I mean, what was the atmosphere like?
Well, it's hard to say how the family actually was feeling because they were here in Pasadena and I was in New York, but I'm quite sure everyone was excited. Now, my brother, that was older than all I know, he was like a popcorn coming out of a machine because he was really a pusher, and he liked to bet a little bit of money, and I think he made a little bit of money on what I was going to do, and I suppose he lost some money because I didn't win the finals, because I'm sure that he would have bet the farm on it, but overall I think that everyone was as enthusiastic as you or anyone else would be as a member of the family, of your family was making a successful venture. So we were just normal individuals, and we said, well, that was great, and this and that and the other. There was no big hip hip hooray, and not like most people will think about in the movies or some kind of a program where the hero comes home and everything is laid out in that manner. That didn't happen.
You qualified for two events at
Yes.
the Olympics, the 100-meter and the 200-meter dashes. Tell us about your progress in those events once you got over there. What were the races and the qualifying heats and all of that like for you?
When it got down to the 100-meter relay team, which I qualified for, I was eliminated by the coaches. I wasn't even allowed to participate in the trial heats or runoff races between us. What they did was change the relay team all around. They removed three of us from the relay team: Sammy Stoller, Marty Glickman, and myself. We were taken off the relay team, and the team was made up of Ralph Metcalf, Jesse Owens, Foy Draper, and Frank Wyckoff. Now, in a trial heat and a runoff, is to find out who was going to be the fourth man. Frank Wyckoff, Ralph Metcalf, and Jesse Owens was already automatically selected by the coaches. They had to have a fourth man. So Marty Glickman, Sammy Stoller, and Foy Draper, they were in a runoff to see who was going to be the fourth man in that race. They told me, forget it. They wouldn't even let me race against the four. Marty Glickman won that race. Sammy Stoller was second, and Foy Draper was third. He was 0.3 of a second slower than the winner. The coaches put Foy Draper on the relay team. We argued that in a meeting, and they told me point blank, if I hadn't made it in the 200 meters, they never would have even put me on the boat to go over. And of course, I sounded off. If you know Jack, well, I'm older than he, and so I was quite vocal, and I expressed myself. And so Jesse said that he would back off and not run in a relay if certain things were to change. there was also a discussion as to who was going to run in what order. And the coaches decided that Jesse would lead off, Ralph Metcalf would run second, Ford Draper third, and Frank Wyckoff ran fourth. Now what that actually set up was the two blacks ran first and the two whites finished, and that's where basically you see you get the glory from. Normally in a track meet, the fastest man either runs first or last. The second man runs first or last. The slowest man runs second. And the next man, he runs third. Therefore, you sandwich in between your slowest and your fastest to pick up any slack or whatever you may develop. And the coaches had decided among themselves is that's the way it was going to be. And there was a lot of inside fighting there and a lot of hard feelings.
In the comments, make sure you let me know who is your favorite track star. And don't forget to give this video a like.
But the coaches decided that's the way it was going to be. And that was the same way with Eleanor Holmes. The judges, the officials, didn't like, the American officials didn't like the fact that Eleanor Holmes was given first-class treatment by the captain of the boat. She was on top deck and she had a little cocktail wine or whatever she normally drank, and she was still the fastest swimmer that we had, as far as that is in the world at that time. But somebody got mad about something and they just pulled her off the team, period. We tried to sign a petition to have her reinstated, the athletes, but the officials said no. Now, since the games, there's been a lot of controversy and a lot of talk about the association between our officials and the German government, in which was in charge of the games, and they were unhappy with the amount of blacks that was on the team and whatever. Cut.
We're going to camera roll number 7. Number 7.
We're losing? Okay. Mr. Robinson, you ran in the 1936 Olympics in the finals for the 200-meter dash. I wonder if you'd describe that for us.
Well, it's rather hard to describe, I think, because it's kind of like a flash. You've got less than 30 seconds to run 200 meters, you know. There's not a great deal of thinking that you can do. You just listen for the gun, and when it goes off, you're off. And you're doing your darndest out there, and before you know it, the race is over. But it's a good feeling to be there. You know, we had 64 individuals that was in the 200 meters in the very beginning, and they had to be eliminated down to 8. So when you look at, you're inside of the 8 out of 64, that's not bad. And you go on down and you're number 2 out of the 8, and which covers the whole world. To me, it's great. I have no qualms about finishing second. I've enjoyed placing second. My silver medal has a lot of meaning into me, and I believe it has as much meaning in it as the gold. But I think that the gold, to me, was taken away in the fact that I wasn't really given an opportunity to win the gold, because I was not coached by the coaches.
Let's cut again. Your situation with the coaches. I think that's a very important, very good story. Okay?
Okay.
In the 1936 Olympics, 200-meter dash, you, I think, feel that you weren't given every opportunity to win the gold in that race.
Well, I wasn't given an opportunity to have a shot at the gold because I was not coached by the coaches, nor was I asked any question of needs or how I felt or do I need a rub down, anything. I was out there on my own. I did need a pair of spikes. I didn't have an opportunity to talk on the radio with Bill Henry, who was broadcasting back to California. And at that time, I certainly would have asked friends in Pasadena to send me a pair of spikes or send me enough money to be able to buy a pair of shoes. You see, I left California with $150 in my pocket. My train ticket cost $99 round trip from Pasadena to California at that time, and I had less than $50 when I landed in New York, and when I made the Olympic team, I believe I had less than $30. So, being the first time actually away from home, not knowing what tomorrow was going to bring, I was trying to hold on to $1 or $2 in order to meet any personal needs that I might have at the time. But I certainly was thinking that I would be looked after with spikes and things of this nature. So that's what happened to me.
I wonder if you describe to us the portion of the race where you felt you were particularly disadvantaged by running without spikes because of the quality of the track. You said at one point earlier that you had stepped into a soft spot.
I would have not gone that deep into the ground because of that short spike, and therefore it made a lot of difference. And I just would like to have had an opportunity to have been given that pair of spikes. I did get a pair of spikes after the games, and I went to on a tour, and I went up to Norway, and I was given a pair of spikes by the Norwegian Track Club. There, I was.
We should stop.
Del, don't take.
Just tell us a story about you getting the spikes from the Norwegian Track Club. Okay, I'll just lead you.
All right.
Mr. Robinson, after the 1936 Olympics, you toured in Europe. You went to run in Norway. What happened there?
The Norwegian club gave me a pair of spikes, and at that time,
after the 1936 Olympics, you ran in some other places in Europe. Tell us a story about running in Norway.
In Norway, we went there, and I was on a relay team with Cornelius Johnson, Johnny Woodruff, Al Fitch, and myself, and we ran in a 1,000-yard race. The Norwegian club gave me a pair of spikes. I ran the 300 yards instead of the 200 meters in that race, and we set a world record for 1,000 yards. Now, Cornelius Johnson, a normal high jumper, he ran a fantastic 100 meters. Al Fitch ran a fantastic 200 meters. I ran an exceptionally fast 300, and Johnny Woodruff, we all, I think, just overshadowed ourselves in our events. So we set a world record for 1,000 yards. And then after we left Norway, I came back to Paris. And in the 200 meters there, I ran 20.8 and a 200 meters. The Olympic record was set by Jesse Owens in Berlin at 20.7. So we ran 1/10 of a second apart as far as time goes. But in that race, I didn't have competition, and I was approximately 20 yards ahead of the field. So I basically just breezed in to the finish, and I was surprised when I got the photo that there was no strain on my face whatsoever. And I think competition might have made some difference. It may not, but the spikes did. I know because I was up on my toes and I was able to drive, and I feel as though that had I had some kind of help during the games itself, it might have been somewhat different.
In the aftermath of the 36 Olympics, of course, a number of changes were in the offing in athletics in America. I think many people don't know that up until that time, even though we did have a single team at the Olympics, that sports in America was still a largely segregated matter, and that the conditions for Negro athletes at that time were not at all the same as they are now. What was the feeling among athletes about what could be done? Did you sense that among the athletes themselves there was a drive toward changing the conditions under which athletics were conducted, and most especially the professional areas of athletics?
When we returned from our trip to the games, we didn't have enough time to actually come together as a body to maybe try to form or an organization or actually discuss the policies that went on during the games. We all went our separate ways, and a lot of us were really happy to get back home because we, like myself, I left the last part of June, and here it was almost September getting back home, and it was a long time, and that was a good feeling to be back home, but to a degree a disappointing return because of the input that was given by the city itself.
We gotta stop.
We're going to camera roll 8. Camera roll 8.
Yeah, go ahead. By the 1940s, there would be a great move forward in terms of what professional athletics mean in this country. Jack Robinson would make a move that has enormous meaning, I think, to all of us here and to many people in the country. Do you have any feelings about what generated that particular activity? We always hear, well, Branch Rickey made the decision to do this, but obviously some other decisions had to be made.
Well, I don't know too much about the final decision as to Jack's involvement in baseball was concerned. He had established himself as an outstanding athlete by being the first individual to score 4 letters at UCLA. It's never been done before. And that was in baseball, basketball, football, and track. And then he went into the service, and he was a second lieutenant, and when he came out, he started playing ball with the Kansas City Monarchs and the black professional teams, and I suppose some of the scouts was out watching those teams also, and according to what they say, Rickey was interested in bringing about some changes, and through his scouting reports and everything, they finally selected Jack in 1946. And that year he played for the Montreal Royals, and they won their league that year, and Jack was signed in 1947 to the Brooklyn Dodgers.
What was the atmosphere here in California like during that period as far as, I mean, I think it may have been somewhat different than it was in the East, but what did people generally feel about a whole history of black people being kept out of sports competition. How did you feel about the fact that many people just didn't get an opportunity to?
Well, during those days, there wasn't very much movement towards integration as far as sports and other activities was concerned, and I was not involved in basically a political movement at that time. So we just came along and basically had to accept what the standard had been laid before us. The major change that came about was in 1947 after Jack was signed into baseball. We came out of the kitchen. We came out of the upstairs maid, downstairs maid, the chauffeur, butler, and gardener. And when you look around the country and you see what positions we now are able to hold, I think that you'll have to contribute that to the success of Jack in baseball. Our intelligence now can be used and not wasted. And cooperations and every aspect of the world is looking for the best talent that they can get. You had no professional players in any professional sport of today. Now, at that time I should say, now we are dominating the professional sports. And we have quarterbacks that can be quarterbacks if you owners are willing to give us that chance. And we're gonna get you. And I want my fellow brothers to stay in there and pitch. Don't give up, because if you give up and say you can't, then you won't. A quitter never wins, and a winner never quits.
You have recently been involved with the Jackie Robinson Sculpture Project at UCLA. I wonder if you'd tell us a little bit about the genesis of that project and how it proceeded.
Well, as the brother of a man who had contributed so much to the world, to the United States, I had watched the situation go by in which I did not feel that Jack had ever been given proper recognition. When Roberto Clemente, Hank Aaron, and other outstanding athletes have had statues made of them and placed in various points of the country and their sites in which the individuals felt it was proper, nothing had been done for Jack. And this idea has been on my mind since about 1970. In 72, 4 months before Jack died, I was talking with him in New York, and I said to him, "What do you think of me having a statue built of you?" Well, after so many years had gone by and nobody had actually come up with that idea or had done anything about a statue, life-size, I thought it was time that he be recognized. And I set about setting up a cooperation, non-profit, in order to build a statue for him. A statue now is at the UCLA Jackie Robinson Baseball Stadium. And I am very pleased and proud, through the help of my wife, to develop the program in which the statue is built. Bam!
Up from your conversation with your brother in New York, okay?
All right.
Okay. In 1972, you said 4 months before your brother Jack Robinson died that you had a conversation with him in New York. Would you tell us about that?
Well, I had been thinking about this statue of him for a long time because no one else had ventured to do it. And so I asked him what he thought about having a statue built of him. And he told me, well, sounds good. If you think you can do it, why, go ahead. Well, 4 months later, with him dying, there was a setback because at that time I was sure that someone would come up with this idea. And it lingered on and lingered on, and then here is 11 years later, nothing happened. And I said, well, no one seems to be interested, so if it's going to be done, I'm going to try to do it. And I started out, and I started soliciting funds from friends across the country and people whom I thought would be willing to make a contribution to help build a statue, which I estimated a cost of $100,000. And the statue is up, but financially I'm in the hole. But the statue has been paid for, but there's an awful lot of other extra monies that is needed, and I'm still working on that phase of it. But it's a beautiful life-size statue of Jack. It's an on-deck position, and I think it's a beautiful statue. And if any time anyone is out in Los Angeles or Southern California, go over to UCLA and ask where the statue is and get the directions as to how to get there.
Mr. Robinson, let's talk about what happened in the period after 1947. What has happened to athletics in your view? What about the modern athlete? Have people inherited, you think, the tradition, certainly that you helped to establish, a tradition of excellence, of hard work, of perseverance? What do you think about today's sports stars?
Well, we have some fantastic sports stars of today. The thing that I see that is different, we're too interested in how much money we're going to make, and we don't put enough back into the sports in itself, helping the young people, the children on the streets. Those children are your idols, and they're looking up to you. You're going to have to stay away from the drug scene and talk to young people and show them a better way to go. You know, when your idol becomes involved in a serious problem, it affects you in various ways. And you would say, oh no, he wouldn't do that, she wouldn't do that, or whatever. You're really disappointed. Or you might say, well, he...
Okay, rolling.
You can ask questions?
Yeah.
I'm going to let you finish.
Okay. Mr. Robinson, I wonder if you talk about your feelings in regard to the responsibility that the champion, that the person who becomes a champion has, and particularly in regard to relationship between champions and young people.
I think a champion should turn his rewards back to the young people and give them a pat on the back. If you see a youngster doing something that you feel would help him to improve, take the time. It may only take a minute or two, and show him a point that would change his approach or attitudes around about the game that he's involved in. I see a lot of youngsters myself that are out. When I go to a track meet, I look for specific things. I look for arm motion, leg motions, and all of those things. And if I get an opportunity to see that individual, I speak to them in a helpful manner, but I don't try to change a coach's decision with that athlete. But some little points of keeping his arms straight forward, arm motions and leg motion, and realizing when to move up on your competitor or what position you want to be in, at particular times. Little things that a youngster who's competing is not fully aware of what he's doing. He's so bent on achieving until he does not realize how much he is losing by just a few little points.
I think we got it. We got it.
Who would you like for me to do a video on next? What are your thoughts about this video? Please share them in the comments. Please be honest when answering these questions. Share this video with anyone you deem necessary. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.